All right, we're live. Welcome in. We are putting it all together tonight. We have gone through every position group to help you dominate your fantasy football draft. Not defenses, not kickers, but the real position groups. And tonight we're going to put it all together. We're going to do a little mock draft. So I'm Jeff Berckes. I'm a writer at Windy City Gridiron, and I have been working through a building the board project with Erik Smith of the QB list. And he has brought on his podcasting partner, Ryan Heath, tonight. Gentlemen, thank you so much for being here.
Oh, yeah. Thanks for having us. I'm excited to wrap this up, and I feel like we've done everything at this point, so we might as well do a mock draft.
Yeah, very excited to be here. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, Ryan, we know that Erik is a Bengals fan. We need to establish real quick, since we're going to be drafting against each other, what is your favorite NFL team?
I don't know if I should even say it out loud, but as you can maybe guess by
it's a Patriots, right?
I'm a Pats fan. There's a Red Sox logo behind me. Yeah, put it together.
Well, we're going to be drafting 5 rounds of a draft, maybe 6 if it goes quick enough, but 5 rounds of a draft. So I don't think you have to worry about me drafting any Patriots players.
You know what? Fair enough. It's hard to argue. Hard to argue with that. I don't think you probably should.
The coaches are not part of this draft, so I'm not going to draft Bill Belichick at any point. And honestly, I'm definitely not going to draft your assistants at this point.
Yeah.
So, here's what we've done. So we took the board that we had been building, throughout, and we created a little draft sheet here. Across the top is going to be the teams. I numbered them 1 through 12. We're each taking 4 teams. We're gonna trade off positions here as we go through this exercise. Erik's going to start us off. I'm all the way at the end. We're going to use the snake draft format. And then we're going to, for those of you that are watching on YouTube, you can see all of those fun headshots. For those of you that are listening on the podcast, might make a nice visual, but we'll talk through why we're doing what we're doing, and we'll kind of recap each team as we go. Try to keep it brief, but also add some color to why you would do, why you would pick a certain player, where he's being picked, and why you would pair that person with the previous picks before it, et cetera, et cetera. Basically trying to give a guide of how you start your draft. We don't have time to go through an entire draft. And I think that would kind of get boring and tedious real quick, but I think it's really important to, in order to dominate your fantasy league, you have to start strong. Like, more than anything, you don't want to be throwing Hail Marys in the first 3 rounds. You want to be real smart with what you're doing here. So I pulled up all the headshots and in the categories that we had used throughout. So the star players are here. We have the lock players over here, and then we have more players in reserve on the second page. Erik, we are going to start with you. Team E1, pick 1.01. Who is it?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's 2 clear choices here. I'm going to go with Jonathan Taylor. I've kind of said this all along. In a home league, I think he's as safe as it gets. Rock solid pick over 1. This was an underdog best ball where I'm going for a big overall prize. I'll take a chance maybe on someone else. But give me Taylor. He's just going to be there every week for you, scoring touchdowns.
Perfect. Ryan, pick 2. R2, pick 2.
Yeah, so Erik makes the decision for me. I've got to go with Christian McCaffrey. In my opinion, he is the true 101 this year. No other player matches the ceiling that we've seen from him before. I would happily take him wherever I can get him, including right in the first pick.
Yeah, McCaffrey obviously adds a lot of juice, but he's got the injury concerns. He hasn't been able to stay healthy the last couple of years. He's also on a team that I don't know what the Panthers want to be. They're just acquired Laviska Shenault, and they got Baker Mayfield. Matt Rule looks like he's probably going to be the first coach fired this year. Like, everything is all up in the air for the Panthers, but obviously McCaffrey's a good player. So this is my first pick then. So this is for the team number 3, drafting in the 3 spot. And I didn't tell these guys beforehand, but this is a 10 point per reception league. So clearly Justin Jefferson, we're going PPR. I'm going to take the top receiver on the board. And that's Justin Jefferson to me. There's a little bit of debate, I think, on who that might be for different people. I have watched already a lot of Justin Jefferson because he plays for the Vikings against my favorite teams, twice a year. And I think he's going to terrorize the NFC North for many years to come. I think he's better than Stephon Diggs ever was in Minnesota. And I think that he's just going to take that next step to that elite level this year, even with Kirk Cousins throwing him the football. So I feel really good about getting him here in a PPR league. I would feel good about getting him at the end of the first round if you're not in a PPR league. So Justin Jefferson to me seems like as safe as they come from a wide receiver standpoint.
Yep. And I would add him at pick 3 as well. So I would have taken him there, but I am left at pick 4, and I will go with Cooper Kupp. You could make an argument for either of these players at 3 overall, but Kupp just came off a season with 191 targets and he scored 26 fantasy points a game. So like, I know there's some regression, maybe, players tend to not repeat like Kupp just did last year, but I don't think we should knock him for that. He's top receiver in the league. So let's keep him on our team and take him the 4th spot overall.
Perfect.
Sorry.
No, go ahead, Ryan.
All right. Yeah. And I'm up next. So everybody is going to want me to take a running back. I'm sure I've heard this many times, but we are going to go with Jamar Chase. If I am betting on a receiver to break 2,000 yards this year, it is Chase. We see generally a high rate of overperforming expectations from sophomore receivers. Chase had an otherworldly year last year from an efficiency standpoint, and I would rather have him over every other running back still available.
Yeah, he's clearly got a very good connection with Joe Burrow. The Chase versus Penei Sewell argument coming out last year, I think it's a nice philosophical argument. But when you have a college connection like Burrow to Chase, it seemed like a very smart idea. And there's a lot of number 1 jerseys being sold in Cincinnati. I mean, it's rivaling the Cincinnati chili at Skyline, right? Everybody's got one of those. So I'm gonna my second team here, pick 6. I can't resist taking a running back here, and I'm going to take Austin Eckler. So Eckler to me is a guy that I've been on for a long time. If those of you that know me know that the Chargers are my AFC team. It's a team that I've cheered for since they drafted LaDainian Tomlinson, and Eckler is a lot of fun, gets a lot of volume, just a workhorse type of back that is in a good offense that I think is going to succeed. And I love investing in fantasy AFC West players. So for me, Eckler makes a lot of sense to be a foundation for a team. I'm happy to get him there at pick 6.
Yep. And that's a great spot for him too. I think he goes 3rd a lot. So getting him at pick 6 is a really nice value. At pick 7, I think this is one you can really kind of depends on the league you're playing in and the PPR, non-PPR scoring. But I'm actually going to go with Stephon Diggs here at wide receiver. I know people were a little frustrated with his year last year, but he's just one of the elite volume receivers in the league. I'm going to bet on some positive regression. Pair him with Josh Allen, we want these players paired with good offenses. We certainly get that with Stephon Diggs. So you can make a case for a lot of running backs here, but we're going pretty wide receiver heavy here. So let's keep this running, and I'll get a nice value on a running back on the way back.
You think so? It's going to be a run here. All right, Ryan, your next team, pick 8.
Yeah, Erik is forcing me to draft a running back here against my will. So we're going to go with a bit of a curveball. We are not taking Derrick Henry. We are taking Najee Harris. So Najee is really the complete package when you look at a fantasy running back. 14% target share last year. That's totally locked in. He's a size speed specimen. The ceiling is really high for him, despite all of the concerns around the Steelers offense. So I'm still happy to take him in the 1st round. The weird foot injury concerns me a little bit, but not enough to totally get me off of him.
Yeah, the Liz Frank injury, obviously something to monitor, to be concerned with. Maybe if you have him in a dynasty league, that might be very concerning for you. In a redraft league, I don't think it's reared its ugly head yet enough for you to take him out of the 1st round. And they're going to need to run the football, right? I mean, whoever's going to be taking snaps for that team, whether it's Mitchell Trubisky or whether it's Kenny Pickett at some point. I mean, I don't think there's anybody else that will take snaps, but they're going to need to run the football, and that's why they drafted him in the 1st round. I mean, he's a good talent, so makes a lot of sense there. So my next pick, so this will be my 3rd team that I'm drafting, pick 9. So I don't know. I think I'm going to have to take Dalvin Cook. And again, it might just be my NFC North bias, but I think that those 2 players from the Vikings are worthy of 1st round picks and deserve to go. Dalvin Cook pretty much does it all. And they were talking about trying to unload Alexander Madison. So maybe they don't feel as good about his backup as a lot of other people do. And if that just means that they want to lean more on Dalvin Cook, then that just means more fantasy points for team 9.
Yeah, that's good value on Cook. And at pick 10, this is not a player I pick a lot, but I am going to pull the trigger on Derrick Henry here. A lot of reasons for concern here. He's entering his age 28 season, coming off an injury last year, but everything sounds good so far. And he was putting up 24 PPR points a game last year, getting an absurd amount of carries per game. So he's not a typical target of mine when he goes like pick 5, but at pick 10 in the first round, I can certainly get on board with Derrick Henry.
Thank you, Erik, for taking him and preventing me from having.
I could already name your next pick here. So go ahead.
Oh, can you? Okay. Well, we'll see if you're right. I'm actually going to go with DeAndre Swift here. Yeah, Erik knew exactly what was about to happen.
Oh, okay.
So DeAndre Swift is pretty much next to McCaffrey and Eckler, one of the best pass catching running backs in the league. I expect the Lions to be better this year. And even if they aren't, that's totally fine because Swift actually scores more fantasy points in negative game scripts in games that the Lions are losing. So it benefits him from a pass catching perspective if they're not good. And if they are good, then maybe he gets a spike in touchdowns and he really challenges for the top of that running back position.
I like Swift. Again, NFC North bias, apparently, because I've seen these guys a lot. But I actually took Swift in my home league as well at this, basically at this point. It would have been pick 11. It's a 10-team league, and I had the turn. 2-time defending champ. Not to brag, just stating it for the record that's right. Why I was drafting there. So I like him too. I think he's a really good pick, and he should be in for volume. Been interesting to watch him on Hard Knocks. I don't know if you guys have been watching Hard Knocks, but watching the coaches, kind of get on him for not finishing a run, and like his reactions are kind of like, internal. He's not really, emotional. Like he's not arguing with the coach or yelling back at him. He's just kind of internalizing it. I don't know. I love the Hard Knock stuff just because it gives you just a little bit of a peek behind the curtain. You always find a favorite player or two out of the Hard Knock series or the in-season series. And I was kind of hoping to really like Swift, but he's not giving me much, right? He's not giving me enough to be like, oh, this guy's great. So he'll be on my fantasy team, so I'll cheer for him. But other than that, I don't think he's going to be a favorite. All right, so I'm at the turn. So I'm going to make the last pick in the first round. I look through here. We haven't taken a tight end yet. These guys, I feel like these guys are pros. So I take a tight end, they're probably going to like laugh at me, but I still might here. Devontae Adams is the last star wide receiver that's available. We put them in the S tier. I feel like I have to take Adams here. And I can take him, even though those of you that are watching, his headshot still has him in a Green Bay jersey. It's not technically a violation of my rule because he no longer plays for Green Bay. Again, I only draft from 31 teams. I do not draft anybody that plays for the green and gold team, but he doesn't play there anymore. He plays in the AFC West. If there's any theme to what I like best, it's fantasy players in the AFC West. So Devontae Adams is going to be my first pick. So I'm in a weird spot because the running backs that I really like that I would love to have at the turn here are already gone. I kind of thought Swift was going to be there. So Ryan is already on my list. But when I make the first, and I should recap the first round real quick. So we went Jonathan Taylor, Christian McCaffrey, Justin Jefferson, Cooper Kupp, Jamar Chase, Austin Eckler, Stephon Diggs, Najee Harris, Dalvin Cook, Derrick Henry, DeAndre Swift, and Adams. So when you see that, you guys have seen a million mock drafts, just like real quick, is that pretty much chalk, or is there a value there to somebody fall more than he usually does? Like, what are you seeing there as an expert?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like this follows a lot of rankings out there, but when you actually get into the ADP and get people drafting, a lot of times you see Derrick Henry up at like pick 5, and you usually don't see that Jefferson, Kupp, Chase kind of 3 in a row right there. A lot of times Eckler or Henry is up there. So I think this was a little more top heavy on receivers, but I think it's the right 12 overall.
Yeah, I would just echo that. It's pretty rare that Derrick Henry is actually going to fall that far. I will take him if he does make it to that back of the first round, as I alluded to if Erik hadn't taken him. But yeah, you can see the receiver bias that Erik and I have injected into this mock draft.
Yeah, well, that's fair. I was pushing myself to do that too because I know that that's what you guys are all about, right? Erik has like pushed that on me, so I think I'm gonna actually throw a curveball here. I'm gonna take Travis Kelce at the turn here. It's gonna leave this team maybe a little susceptible to running backs in the future, but somebody has to like maybe play the zero running back game here and see what happens. But I can't resist Travis Kelce because the biggest the biggest competitor to his target share in Kansas City is no longer there. Tyreek Hill got traded in the offseason. He's now in Miami. Kelce is as good as anything. He's already should be fitted for his Hall of Fame jacket. This guy's going to walk into as a first ballot Hall of Famer, and he's got a Hall of Fame quarterback throwing in the football. I mean, this is in a Hall of Fame coach calling plays, right? Like he's set up for another giant year. And I get that little positional bonus of grabbing one of those tight ends off the top. And I don't have to worry about that kind of, whatever that is after like tight end 5. Right. So I'm going to take him. I will take your ridicule here if I need to, but that's my pick.
No, I don't mind him there at all.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't definitely from a strategy standpoint, I don't mind it because Kelce is the only elite tight end you really have access to if you're drafting in the back half of the draft. So I have no problem with you taking him. Smart people are worried about his snap rate having fallen, especially last year. But I think it's still worth picking him there on the turn. So next is my pick. And my big problem this year is I really like drafting wide receivers early. I really don't like the wide receivers that go in the second round. So I'm going to go with a 2 running back start here, and I'm going to take Saquon Barkley.
Yeah.
So Saquon profiles as basically one of the most likely players to finish as the overall RB1 this year. The Giants clearly are not worried about his health because they have absolutely no depth behind him. Matt Breida and Gary Brightwell are the 2 top backups. That's not doesn't say to me that they're very concerned about Saquon not having a full workload. Obviously, he's an athletic freak. He has put up an insane fantasy season before in his rookie year. So I'm happy to get both him and Swift on this team.
Erik, what about you? You've got pick 10. You took Eric Henry with the first pick for this team. Are you going to do the same thing and follow suit, or are you going to shift gears here?
Yeah, this is a tough spot as well. This is one that's, man, I do not like taking him, but I think at this value, I just have to pull the trigger. I'm going to go with Alvin Kamara. It looks like we're in the clear with suspension stuff here. He's going to be lower down in our ranks because back when we did running backs, I still thought he was going to get suspended somehow, but his trial just keeps getting delayed. I hope we have a picture of him. But there he is up in the top right up there. I can see him there.
I gotcha.
Jersey. Yeah.
Jeez.
So as the offseason has gone, it looks like he's not getting suspended. And that means that he's an elite, one of the elite target hogs in the entire league at running back. So he's one that I tend to not pick a lot in my real drafts. But when I'm slotted into this spot here, I guess I'm going old school. I'm taking Derrick Henry and Alvin Kamara and kind of rolling it back 2 years here.
That's fair. Kamara is a personal favorite of mine. So, I had a dynasty share of Alvin Kamara where I had him like super late and I just had to give up a pick like 2 rounds ahead each year. Mm-hmm. And so I was able to get like peak Alvin Kamara for the most expensive he got was, I think it was like a round 11 or something like that. Mm-hmm. And then they changed the rules of the league.
Funny how that works.
Yeah, funny how that worked. All right, so I'm back to my team 9. This was Dalvin Cook to begin with, and I kind of want to do the same thing. Looks like we've got kind of the running back pairings here, and I think that I'm going to do the same. And I'm thinking between. I like Nick Chubb a lot. I think he's the best pure runner on the board. I don't think that that's the right fantasy move just because of the competition there. I think it's Joe Mixon. I think that's kind of a safe bet. Maybe not what I should do, but I'm going to take Joe Mixon. So I'm going to take yet another Bengal off the board. They already have 2, and we're going to certainly see at least one more Bengal drafted tonight, if not another one. But I like Mixon from a safety standpoint because I don't think he's got a lot of people really challenging him for any carries.
Yeah, I mean, on Joe Mixon, I'll say that from a statistical standpoint, it seems like he has a really high ceiling this year. Personally, I don't believe in it. I'm not drafting him very much, but that's possibly me setting myself up for failure against my better judgment. So now looking at my team, I started off with Najee. So I think I'm going to do it, and Eric's going to laugh at me. I'm going to take CeeDee Lamb. And CeeDee is not a player that I have taken much at all this year. I think that his cost is extremely high for a player we think is good, but hasn't necessarily shown it through 2 seasons. He's never even crested a 20% target share. So the idea that he's suddenly going to completely dominate the Cowboys' targets and finish as a fantasy wide receiver 1 is a little far-fetched to me, but I think at some point you have to get the spreadsheets and the data and all the stats out of your brain and just say, is CeeDee Lamb a good football player on a really good offense? And the answer to that is yes. So the receivers are kind of scarce in round 2, but I'm happy to pair him with Najee here.
Yeah. And I actually would have taken him at Kamara probably a few weeks ago. The Tyron Smith injury kind of scares me a little bit, and it was just enough to bump him behind those 2 running backs. But I don't disagree with the Lamb. We had this discussion on our podcast quite a bit about if he's worth this pick here, and I can definitely see the holes in his profile, but I think he's set up for such a huge volume. So now it's on me with Stephon Diggs here. This is a little bit of a tricky spot because it looks like I kind of feel like I just missed out on all the tiers here with this pick. So I am going to go with another receiver here. It's just a matter of which one. I'm going to go with this is maybe higher than this ADP. I'm not sure where it's at nowadays, but I'm going to go with DJ Moore here. I know his upside may be a little bit questionable. I just think he's so rock solid, especially as a wide receiver too. I just really love him there. He's the unquestioned wide receiver 1. I think Baker Mayfield's an upgrade. It's going to be his best quarterback. So we just need more than like 4 touchdowns from DJ Moore, and I think we get his best year this season. So fingers crossed he can get in the end zone.
Awesome. Glad you took him off the board. I had no interest in him. Ryan, just go back to your CD point. You said I was with you up until you said on a really good offense, because I'm just not sure. I'm just not sure about the Cowboys with their injuries. So we will see what happens there. All right. So I'm on, this is the pick 6 team. Austin Eckler was my first pick. I think I need to go something other than a running back because I'm not in love with all of the guys remaining. I'm kind of pulling the tight ends around, but not necessarily because I want to pick them. I'm thinking I want a wide receiver here. You've got Deebo Samuel, you got Jalen Waddle, you got T. Higgins, you got Tyreek Hill, you got Mike Evans. Those are kind of the next 5 that we have listed in our previous shows. This is going to be higher, but I'm going to take him before Erik takes him. I'm going to take my guy T. Higgins. Again, team 6 is maybe turning into guys that I just really like personally. T. Higgins was my guy last year, drafted him pretty high. Also put a lot of prop bets on him throughout the year, especially in the second half of the year. And I just kept winning. And I put a big prop bet on him in the Super Bowl to score 2 touchdowns, and he did. And so T. Higgins is my guy. I need to reward him by putting him up into the second round.
Yeah, I think that T. Higgins is totally live to outscore Jamar Chase this year. That's a world we could live in, which is maybe something you can say against taking Chase in the first round, but I still think Chase's ceiling is unmatched. So as far as who I'm going to pair with Chase, I don't particularly want to go wide receiver here. But what I will do, sticking with 0 RB, I got to draft at least 1 0 RB team. I'm going to take Mark Andrews here. So Andrews is a player I have not been drafting much of this year. And the reason for that is I've just been afraid that the Ravens are going to return to their extreme run heavy ways. And I kind of bought into the idea that the reason the Ravens passed like a modern football team last year was because they had nobody in their running back room that was healthy. And now with J.K. Dobbins uncertain for week 1, Gus Edwards on the pup, and apparently the depth that they're signing is Mike Davis and Kenyon Drake, I think the Ravens running attack might look pretty similar for a while this year compared to what it was last year. So if Mark Andrews is going to get 150 targets again, he's an efficiency monster, and you're happy to have him as a tight end in the second round.
Yep. And so I'm going with pick to pair with Cooper Kupp here. There's a bunch of receivers right in this range that I think are like exactly the same almost. It goes on for like 8 of them. So it makes it difficult here. And the running backs are starting to dry up. I'm actually going to go with Leonard Fournette here. I'm going to pair him with Cooper Kupp. I think that gives me a ton of touchdown upside between the two of them. Fournette, like we are scared that he's overweight and he's going to fall off a cliff here. I believe he's age 27, but I feel like we've been afraid of Fournette about this same thing for the past 3 years, and he keeps on chugging along. So just give him 5-6 passes a game from Tom Brady. We'll be just fine with Fournette here.
Okay. I don't know what to think about Fournette. He's not a guy that I would draft just because of that. One of those guys that I think you can lose your draft early because of drafting a guy like him, and it just doesn't work out for him. But he also put up a ton of points last year. So what do I know? Like, you guys know this stuff a lot more than I do.
It's just a bet on Brady, honestly. That's all it is.
Well, then I don't know, man. Like, Brady, I don't know what the heck's going on with him, but my first pick team. So this is the team 3 overall. The first pick was Justin Jefferson. So again, I'm not sure that I want to go wide receiver. I'm kind of looking at the tight ends, and I'm also looking at the running backs. There's a Packer running back, so I can't even look at him. But I think he's the best pure runner in the league. Again, this is maybe a little early for him, but I'm going to take Nick Chubb off the board. I don't think that these experts are going to mind me doing that. I just, I don't know what's going to happen with the Browns offense with the backup quarterback for the first 11 weeks. Maybe that takes away from his value, or maybe it increases his value because they're going to run the ball more. But to me, Chubb is the best pure runner in football. And I think he's worth drafting in the second round.
So I think you had it right earlier when you mentioned him, and you said that while he's the best pure runner, you didn't think that he was the right decision in fantasy. I think the words best pure runner, it was just made up to describe players that are really good at football, but not good for fantasy football. So I wouldn't take Chubb that high, but I totally get it. If you really want to stabilize your running back room, there are some shakier options if you're looking elsewhere. So I am going to avoid the running back position for right now, and I'm going to take AJ Brown.
Okay. Why?
So Brown is quite possibly the best wide receiver on planet Earth. I don't know if that's a hot take, but the efficiency and the dominance of targets that he showed in Tennessee, which is probably the worst possible environment you can think of for a wide receiver, was genuinely
You haven't
impressive.
watched Bears football for
50
years.
Fair.
But okay,
Yeah,
go on.
Yeah, hopefully we never have to see AJ Brown on the Bears, but I just think that the ceiling with him being paired with Jalen Hurts, who is apparently his best friend in real life, it's just so high. The Eagles went out and made this move probably with the intention of throwing the ball more in mind. Early on in the year, the Eagles were very pass heavy, but it seemed like they realized they didn't have the personnel for it. But now it seems like that's the identity they want to have. So I'm happy to take AJ Brown anywhere around the 2-3 turn.
Erik, you got the turn.
Yep. So I've got Jonathan Taylor to start. So I got 2 picks in a row here. I am going to go ahead and grab Javonte Williams, who's fallen a bit here. I know all the reasons why this could not work for Javonte Williams, but I still think as my RB2, the ceiling is awfully high. So I really like that combination with Jonathan Taylor. And then a player I'm not drafting a lot, but it's because he doesn't fall this far, is Deebo Samuel. I'm going to go ahead and pair him here. Feels pretty good that, like, for Deebo Samuel's case, I know maybe the Jimmy Garoppolo news is a little weird, but he's got Trey Lance or Jimmy Garoppolo thrown to him. I think there's some stability there. And Deebo, his incentives are going to lead him to running the ball just like he was last year. I think he's going to regress, but I think at the start of the 3rd round, Deebo is a really nice value.
Yeah, I'm tempted to make a similar move here, Erik, and take a falling player that I normally wouldn't, but I'm actually not going to do that. I'm just going to stick with old reliable, and I'm going to take Kyle Pitts.
There you go.
That's an old reliable. The second year pro is an old reliable.
He's an old reliable for me this offseason. I draft him a lot in the 3rd round. So really, when you look at this team I've built now through 3 rounds, Christian McCaffrey, AJ Brown, Kyle Pitts, those are 3 players that are totally live to just lead their position in fantasy points. And I like having that shot at having a positional advantage in 3 different places. So Pitts himself was obviously amazing by rookie tight end standards. Even by rookie wide receiver standards, he was quite efficient and quite impressive. All we need to see is him earn a few more targets, as second-year players normally do, and hopefully score some extra touchdowns. And suddenly we're looking at another elite tight end.
I am beside myself because I thought that I could let him go through the turn and have him come back to this team on number 3, but it has not happened. So I lost my tight end opportunities. You took 2 tight ends with these first 2 teams that you're drafting, Ryan. So
yeah, on 2 different teams. Yeah,
I know 2 different teams, but yeah. So you've taken away my tight end strategy after I broke the seal with Kelce. Team 3 again. This is Justin Jefferson and now Nick Chubb. So I come down here and I think that you could go either way because you did a balanced build, right? That's the beauty of taking a wide receiver and a running back. I think that given the board, they got the 2 Dolphins, which I just don't believe in. I think that the most reliable player here is actually Mike Evans. So I'm going to take Mike Evans off the board. Evans is one of those guys that just produces. I know that he'll miss a game or 2, but he, at the end of the year, you look back and you say, wait, how did he put up 10 touchdowns and 1,200 yards? It just happens every single year. It's just what Mike Evans does. So I guess I'm betting on Brady here. Chris Godwin's coming back from an injury. Maybe he'll contribute, but if nothing else, Evans is still the number 1 there.
Yeah, and he was in my consideration for this pick here. So you kind of cleared up my decision. I planted my flag on Jalen Waddle earlier in your show, so I'm going to go ahead and take him over Tyreek Hill again. He's had a little bit of an injury that's held him out of camp. We're at the time where we just don't know if these players are actually hurt or not. So I think he's going to be okay. Just worth noting that he has been missing time in camp with a kind of undescribed injury here. So we'll see. But Waddle just dominated as a rookie last year. We shouldn't overlook that. Tons of targets, and I don't think he's going away just because they added another weapon in Tyreek Hill. So I'll let someone else take Tyreek Hill. Let's see how far he falls here.
He's not going to fall far. It's going to be me taking him right now. Erik, we have talked a lot about the dichotomy between Waddle and Hill. Yep. I agree with you that Hill is somewhat mispriced, that they should be going much closer to each other, but I will happily draft Tyreek Hill anytime after Jalen Waddle. I think they're similar bets, really. We ideally both would have similar roles of being able to stretch the field and also vacuum up targets underneath. But it's really anyone's guess as to how that's going to shake out. We obviously know Tyreek Hill is one of the fastest players in the league. I really next to Waddle. So it's kind of 2 doppelgangers here. So I'm happy to take Hill after Waddle for once as a value there.
And I'll say, in a normal draft, I think I could maybe even get Waddle in the 4th round, maybe. But I know that I'm drafting with Ryan with every other pick, and Jeff's already heard me talk him up. So this is a little bit different here.
I'm just amazed at how comfortable you guys are drafting 2 third-round wide receivers with a really unproven quarterback.
I'm not sure comfortable is the right word, but we're at an interesting spot in the draft here. I mean, we'll see some of these names coming off. There are some shaky quarterbacks about to come off the board. So more on that in a moment.
All right. So back to this team 6. So it started with Austin Eckler and T. Higgins. I come down here and there's a couple personal favorites that I could take. I could break the seal at quarterback. I feel like these fancy guys will kill me for that, but I might do it. It might be too early for that. Kittle is a personal favorite. He went to Iowa, so I'm always going to love me some George Kittle. So this team might just be personal favorite draft. I don't really know at this point. And then I'd have to go down to kind of that next level of wide receivers. I have to come down to the next level of running backs if I wanted to go that direction. So there's a lot of options here. You feel like you're maybe kind of losing a tier. But I don't know. I'm kind of compelled by Ryan saying a live player to win the week kind of thing, and or to lead their position. And those guys generally can win you a week. And so I'm kind of thinking about taking one of these star players, either the tight end or the quarterback. I'm going to take Josh Allen. I have benefited from Josh Allen being a cyborg in the past, and I will take his amazing ceiling here with this team that I'm really liking shaping up here.
Yeah, and he's got an ADP of 24 overall, so you got a little bit of a discount there. I think once you get through this part of the draft, you can certainly start considering Allen. So I'm going to draft a 2 wide receiver team so far, Stephon Diggs and DJ Moore. So I could go a million different ways with this pick. Let's go ahead and take someone I know that you won't draft off the board here. I'm going to go with Aaron Jones. Not someone I'm drafting a ton here, but I think on a 2 wide receiver team, he's a pretty good value here in the mid-3rd round. I think the Packers are going to have to lean on their running backs because I don't trust any of their receivers. So I like Aaron Jones here. And gives me a nice little start, 2 receivers, 1 running back.
Yeah, I was starting to wonder when Aaron Jones was going to come off the board. I knew it would be to Erik because I'm also not a big Aaron Jones person, and he definitely is. So glad that you got him there at value. Yeah. So there's really not, I feel like there aren't many directions I can go here. So I've got Najee and CeeDee Lamb. I do not like drafting running backs at all in this range of the draft. So I'm really just looking at the wide receiver position. I guess I'm going to take Michael Pittman off the board.
Oh, wow. Okay. Talk about it.
Yeah, sure. So Pittman in his sophomore year last year basically had a textbook sophomore breakout. We saw his target share increase. It was exactly what you would want to see from a second-year player. Not somebody I've been huge on through the start of his career, but it's hard to argue with results on the field. He gets what is likely a quarterback upgrade in Matt Ryan. Ryan has been pretty prolific at targeting outside wide receivers, of which Pittman certainly is. So I think taking him here towards the back half of the 3rd is pretty good value. And he's not a guy I get all that often either.
All right. Yeah, I went into my draft with him as a target, but it did not work out. So this is team 9, Dalvin Cook, Joe Mixon. So I've got my running backs. I don't have to worry about running back here. Obviously I could take one and put him in the flex, but we're at the point with running backs that I think you wait here. Need some pass catchers here. Who could finish as a wide receiver 1? I think there's kind of 2 options here, maybe 3, but you guys are going to potentially disagree here. I'm taking a look here at maybe the safer options. Deontay Johnson sitting there. That's interesting. So I think for this team, Dalvin Cook, Joe Mixon, I'm going to take my first wide receiver and I'm going to put Courtland Sutton. And the reason why is I think that Russell Wilson and Courtland Sutton make the peanut butter and jelly sandwich. I think those are the 2 that work together. I'm not a fan of Jerry Jeudy, not to reveal my hand for later rounds, but I don't think Judy's the guy to draft this year. I think it's Courtland Sutton. I think the reports support that. I think that was obvious coming in. And I think if they're going to really listen to Russ on how to build this offense, they're going to target Courtland Sutton quite a bit this year.
Yeah, I love that pick there. This is a really jumbled group of receiver here. We're going to have to be taking a few of them because we had a couple heavy running back builds here. So I'm up with Derrick Henry and Alvin Kamara. Again, it's a little scary drafting these injured players right now that we don't really know what their status is, but I'm going to go with Deontay Johnson. I'm going to hope this quarterback situation shakes itself out. He just draws a ton of targets every single year. I think Kenny Pickett has shown enough in the preseason where, like, if Trubisky flops, I don't think they're going to a complete disaster at quarterback. And Roethlisberger was close to that last year. So Deontay Johnson's going to draw targets. And as much as George Pickens looks good right now, Deontay's the clear wide receiver 1 in that offense.
Yeah, hard to argue going with Deontay Johnson. It's just that stalwart safe pick that's impossible to get too upset with. So I'm going to go with the other end of that dichotomy that Jeff mentioned and take Jerry Jeudy here as my first wide receiver in this build, adding him to Swift and Barkley. So really the case for Jeudy is kind of similar to the case for Sutton. Obviously, there's a lot of unknown upside in which role both of these players are going to play in the Russell Wilson-led offense. When you look at their efficiencies, Jeudy has been better at earning targets over his career than Sutton has been. You can make arguments either way about the injuries both have sustained, but I think the point is that you should try to leave your draft with either Cortland Sutton or Jerry Jeudy. We've drafted them higher here than people generally do. So I think it shouldn't be too hard for you to get one of those in, say, the 4th round of most home league drafts.
All right, I'm at the turn. Pick 12. This is Devontae Adams and Travis Kelce in the first 2 rounds. So, I've got the tight end. I've got 1 wide receiver. I know that this is kind of a dead zone on running backs, but I'm going to take Cam Akers off the board. And I know that he was struggling a little bit with injury. Maybe people are going to be scared of taking Akers this high. I'm not, because I think he's a good player. He's well enough removed from that injury where I think he's going to come back strong. And he's in one of the best offenses in the league. Now, I know that Darrell Henderson is around and did fine in this role. Cam Akers is a better prospect. He's a better player. So I think that's about as good as you can hope for when you're waiting until the end of round 3 to get your first running back. At least that's in my opinion. And then I'm going to look at wide receivers and see if there's anybody else that I think could be a difference maker here.
Quick note on Akers. He did return to practice on Monday, so that's a good sign. So I have him ranked a little lower than that, but I do understand when you're picking your RB1 here, he's maybe the profile of the RB1, the only one that's left here.
Well, the other guys I think that are left are safe.
If you want
they're more like the high floor, and there's nothing wrong with that. And then I think that maybe the other guy that's the higher ceiling guys, I don't like those offenses, right? I mean, Breece Hall and Travis Etienne, I'm not convinced that those are offenses that I want to invest in. So a lot of what my fantasy approach comes down to is what offenses I like. Right. It's what players I like and what offenses I like. So, and speaking of that, I will take another AFC West players. I'm going to take Michael Williams here. So, I'll take him off the board. I think he's got, they invested in him. He's got another cyborg that throws balls in LA to him with Justin Herbert. So, I'll take Williams off the board to give myself 2 wide receivers and 1 running back and 1 tight end with that team.
Yeah, so good pick, because that's exactly who I was about to take. I've honestly been fading both Chargers wide receivers a little bit this year, more than you'd expect based on how good we think that offense can be. I just have concerns around both of them, really. Probably more concerned for Keenan Allen, but I'm still going to take him here. He did see a drop in efficiency and his target share last year. But it's real when you're looking at the board like this. I'm not going to add a 3rd running back to this build where I started running back. I don't really want to go further down to receivers like Allen Robinson or Juju Smith-Schuster, both of whom I like, but have a lot more uncertainty in their role than somebody like Keenan Allen. So I'm going to go with kind of the safe, boring pick and take Allen.
All right, and I've got a Derrick Henry, Alvin Kamara, Deontay Johnson build here. So I'm definitely looking at receiver here. And, it's not a pretty quarterback situation, but I'm going to bet on the talent, go with Terry McLaurin here. I'm hoping that Carson Wentz just provides somewhat of a downfield element, and I think that could really be huge for Terry McLaurin. So everyone who grades receivers by their route running loves Terry McLaurin. Let's just hope this all clicks for him this year with Just give us 14 games of Wentz throwing the ball downfield a little bit, and I think we'll be in good shape here.
I love Terry McLaurin, the player. It's a matter of that offense.
Asterisks.
So, yeah, exactly. So, all right, we're back to team 9. This is Cook, Mixon, and Sutton. So again, I've got my 2 running backs. I'm not going to worry about that. I've got 1 wide receiver. Feels like there's a lot of good wide receivers still on the board. There's 1 tight end that, again, I'm contractually obligated to love because he went to Iowa. And it kind of falls after that. I think I'm going to do it. I think I'm going to take George Kittle on this team. I know that Kittle can disappear at times, and that's a little scary, but he can also take over games. I don't know what's happening with the quarterback situation. Maybe I should be a little bit more concerned, but I also think that he's just kind of a freak, and those freaks can win you weeks. And I like having players like that on your team. So I'm going to take Kittle off the board here.
Yeah, I'd agree. Kittle scares me, but the week-to-week upside for him to just post a 40-point fantasy performance is there, and you can't totally ignore that. I'm going to take another wide receiver off the board now. So this build will be 1 running back and 3 wide receivers. And I'm going to take Hollywood Brown. So Hollywood, here's the thing with Hollywood. He is underrated because he has been confined to a low volume Baltimore passing offense. The volume went up a little bit last year, and that was great. He had a top 24 year. And on the Cardinals, I think he can improve on that. His target share last year was higher than a player like DeAndre Hopkins, for example, was able to command. I think he's just going to be the clear target leader in Arizona, playing with his college quarterback. What more can you ask for?
And so I'm going to go receiver here as well. I've started Stephon Diggs, DJ Moore, Aaron Jones. I could go with the running back here, but I don't like kind of correcting your running back problem when you take one, when you don't take one in the first 2 rounds. I'm actually going to take Chris Godwin here. We don't really know how long he's going to be out. They haven't ruled him out at any point in the regular season. So if I can grab him as my wide receiver 3, that just feels like a ton of upside. If I have to, I can put someone in early, play them as my wide receiver 3, and then maybe I have 2 wide receiver 1s here after a few weeks. So I could have gone running back there, but I feel like it's better to just play to your strengths and keep going with your wide receivers in this build.
All right, I'm back to this team 6, which has been populated by favorites, and I'm going to continue that trend. So yeah. Austin Eckler, T. Higgins, Josh Allen. This might not go in the direction that you guys think, but maybe it will. I'm going to take the safest running back that's available. This guy's going to have a huge amount of volume. I think that the Khalil Herbert stuff is a little overblown, you guys. I think David Montgomery is going to have a monster carry share, and I think that he's going to he looks like he's just ready to go. Like he is absolutely just is like a a horse in the stable that like can't stay still, right? Like he's like, let's go, let's race, right? Like I mean he's really rare to go, and he looks good to me. He looks a little, I think he's going to thrive in this offense. I think he's going to thrive with an offensive system that allows him to actually have a passing game around him, right? So that's I think it's going to work for him better. I'm not worried about his carry share here. To me, it's the safest RB2 on the board.
All right. So on this team, I have Jamar Chase, Mark Andrews, and Tyreek Hill. So I don't have a running back yet. Normally, this is around where I would target a running back if I've gone 0 RB through 3 rounds, but kind of reading the board and looking at the players still available, I think I can get away with waiting another round and still getting a guy I like. So instead of going running back, I'm going to go wide receiver again with Juju Smith-Schuster.
Ooh.
So Juju is a player that catches a lot of undeserved hate. His first 2 years in the league, we were talking about this guy as a easy top 5 dynasty wide receiver with what he did through 2 years. Insanely productive, extremely young. He's still just like 25 years old, even on his second contract now. So I think that with Patrick Mahomes, if Juju can see somewhat of a role change, get away from the really low average depth of target that he was seeing with Ben Roethlisberger, that even if Juju commands like only a 20% target share in the Chiefs offense, then that could still be a 10 to 12 touchdown season, and he finishes as a top 24 receiver or even better. So I'm getting a lot of Juju this year.
All right, and this is going to be a weird team for me here, but I just don't want to let this player slide anymore. Ryan just passed on taking a running back here, so I'm going to take James Conner. Like, he's going to be the lead back on a really good offense. This is way below his ADP. It feels weird pairing him with Leonard Fournette. They're kind of a similar type player here, I think. But I don't know. I just like the value, and I don't have to draft another running back on this team for like 6 rounds if I don't want to. So I'm giving Fournette and Conner. We'll just pray for touchdowns every week.
Yeah, that's a high touchdown upside. Maybe not, maybe not a lot of
not fun
stuff.
Players. Jeff. I don't know. Not my favorite players.
They're not fun, no. But like you say, you can't pass up the value. So we're back to this team 3 for me: Justin Jefferson, Nick Chubb, and Mike Evans. So I've got 2 wide receivers, 1 running back, and go a couple different directions here. I don't really know what you guys are going to do here. You guys are already kind of bouncing around the board in a fun way, in a good way, guys. Like I'm not being critical here. I think that I think I'm just going to do it. I'm going to take Justin Herbert on this team. Again, I'm biased, AFC West, and I understand maybe taking Herbert over Mahomes might rankle some people, but I've got 2 teams ahead of me that have 4 picks, and so I kind of don't want to be left out of that. I don't know if these guys are going to take quarterbacks, but if they both take a quarterback for these teams, and these guys have a chance to just set the market here, then I'm going to be out of a quarterback here, and I have to wait a little longer. And I kind of want a nice quarterback for this team, so I'm going to take Justin Herbert here.
Yeah, I think that's a totally fine spot for Herbert. So I'm at a interesting position here. I have Christian McCaffrey, AJ Brown, and Kyle Pitts, one at each position. So I can go any direction really. But looking at the players on the board still, I think there is a teardrop coming up here at wide receiver. So unless I'm forgetting somebody, but I'm going to take the last guy in this tier, Allen Robinson. So A-Rob is a player I'm super scared of this year. I'm drafting him some, but not a ton. The thing is, I'll be interested in Jeff's opinion here. It just kind of looked like he quit on the Bears last year, and I'm not even sure I can hold that against him very much. He's still in his prime. He's now in one of the better situations for a wide receiver that we see. If this is like the Odell Beckham role from the end of last year on the Rams, then A-Rob is potentially going to challenge for top 12 wide receiver status. So I'm happy to take him here. I think the ceiling is high. The floor is scary. People are probably rightfully a little scared of him.
Good player, good route runner. He did look like he kind of gave up last year, but it may have been a combination of frustration with Matt Nagy, which we all had, and the fact that when Justin Fields came in, he didn't really have a rapport with Allen Robinson because he wasn't given any first team reps in camp. And so he built it with some of the other guys, but he just never really built it with Robinson. So fresh start for him. He's in a good role. He's in a good offense. They're going to know how to use him. He, again, one of the better route runners in the league in a high volume offense. Makes a lot of sense.
Well, that was one of my next picks, so I need to regroup here. But there's a couple receivers that I do still like on the board. Just trying to decide between them here. And I'm not paying too much attention to ADP here just because of the people I'm drafting against. So, yeah, let's go for it. I really like Rashad Bateman's chances this year. Maybe a little early for him, but this is a second-year player with a ton of volume opportunity in Baltimore. And then I'm going to go with another underrated player. It's probably way above his ADP. I'm going to go with Darnell Mooney here. I just think there's a ton of volume opportunity here. I'm going to load those up for my 3 receivers, Debo, Bateman, and Mooney. And I feel pretty good about that group after starting with Jonathan Taylor and Javonte Williams. And I can't imagine Mooney was going to be here on the way back. So this was the chance to get him on this team.
Here I thought I could sneak him by on this turn here.
Yeah. Nope.
Yeah.
Your quarterbacks fell, though, I think.
Yeah, I figure, you know what? In hindsight, you guys wouldn't have drafted him. So, I should have done Mooney and then gotten one of the QBs. But okay, it is what it is.
Yeah.
All right. So now I'm still in a pretty interesting position. I think I can go wide receiver here, but I think that there is some running back value falling for once. It probably has something to do with the people I'm drafting against. So I'm going to go ahead and just take 5th round Ezekiel Elliott. I'm a little surprised. I don't think I've seen this happen even in some of the sicko diehard 0 RB drafts that I've been in. Zeke in the 5th is like, look, we can talk till we're blue in the face about how Zeke is not an efficient player, how Tony Pollard could be better than him, how we want the Cowboys to give Tony Pollard that role. But the fact is they paid Zeke entirely too much money. Jerry Jones is very invested in Ezekiel Elliott continuing to be the bell cow in Dallas. It's probably going to continue happening this year if he stays healthy. So in the 5th round, I'm happy to take that upside profile.
I just don't think he's that good of a player anymore. I just don't. I mean, I get why you would. I mean, obviously in the 5th round, you just take him. I don't know. He's just the guy that's just kind of off my board. Like,
I don't disagree with you at all. Like I'm not drafting Zeke this year, but in the 5th, it's hard to say no.
All right, team 3. So I've got 2 wide receivers, a quarterback, and 1 running back. And like you say, there's maybe some running back value that's left. I'm scared of this But boy, I mean, I hate taking bad offenses, but I know that those guys have a lot of volume upside potential here. But I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna take Mitchell from the Niners, and really it's because I'm buying into the offense and I'm buying into like 2 reports that say that he's going to be the lead guy. So is he going to be by the end of the year? Who knows? Is it going to be Trey Sermon that's going to like get out of the doghouse and then be the guy? I have no idea. But the 5th round to be the RB2, and he's got just like high potential upside. And who knows what's happening at the quarterback position? I'll take Mitchell here.
All right, and hey, this is a weird team I got going, so I'm just going to continue with it. Started out Cooper Kupp, Leonard Fournette, Jalen Waddle, James Conner. Let's just put it over the top. Give me DK Metcalf here. At some point, like I know the quarterback situation is horrible, but he's a freak. Let's just post him up in the end zone for about 8 touchdowns this year, and I'll be more than happy with him in the 8th or the 5th round. So give me DK Metcalf. I probably like him way more than I should, even with this quarterback situation.
Yeah, I've kind of found myself wondering how dumb I will feel if I'm wrong about DK Metcalf this year, because I have 0. I've been completely fading that offense. But it'll be pretty funny if I look up and he's the top 12 wide receiver this year. So I'm back to my team that is still 0 RB through 4 rounds. We've got Jamar Chase, Mark Andrews, Tyreek Hill, and a player that I can't even make out on this board.
Juju.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So there are 2 directions I could go. I could go with the big baller move and just take Mahomes and stack him with Juju. Or I could go with, I think, an equally fun pick, and it's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take Travis Etienne in the 5th round. Etienne's a player that I was drafting a lot very early this summer, before his ADP was kind of creeping up into the 3rd and the 4th round. At the cost of a 5th rounder, I'm happy to bet on his upside just as a pass catcher, catching passes from his college quarterback. And similarly to Swift, I don't think it matters that much if the Jaguars are any good this year. Etienne is going to thrive in those negative game scripts catching passes. So happy to have him as the RB1 on this 0 RB team.
Yep.
All right. Team 6 had some favorites on it. Austin Eckler pairs with David Montgomery. I've got T. Higgins. I've got Josh Allen. So I need another wide receiver, or I could potentially do a tight end here. To me, I actually feel like the wide receivers have kind of dried up to a certain extent here, at least in this part of the draft. So I'm gonna take my dice roll on Brandon Ayuk, and I like him a lot. I understand that he might be the 3rd option on the team, and I just drafted the San Francisco running back with a different team. This is kind of one of my guys that I've put a bet in. I kind of lost it last year, but then towards the end of the year, he really picked up and he was really valuable. And so it does seem like he's coming in this year as not in the Kyle Shanahan doghouse. He's now someone who's being praised by Kyle Shanahan. So it seems to me like Ayuk's going to have a potentially big year here. So he does still fit the favorite category of a guy that I've invested in the past and personally invested in. So he's on team 6.
All right. Team 7, give me Breece Hall here. I pair him with Aaron Jones. And then at receiver, I have Stephon Diggs, DJ Moore, and Chris Godwin. Hall is like, there's no running back even remotely left in his tier. We've dried it all up, in my opinion. It's a big fall from here. So I could have taken a quarterback here. I kind of want us to start drafting some quarterbacks, but I just can't pass up on Breece Hall. There's a low floor for him, but I do think there's big upside if he catches passes in this offense.
Yeah, I can't blame you at all for taking Hall. He was definitely on my radar as well. So now on this team, I have Najee Harris as my single hero running back, and then 3 receivers, CeeDee Lamb, Michael Pittman, Hollywood Brown. I am going to add yet another receiver. I'm going to take Amon-Ra St. Brown. So he put up one of the more impressive rookie seasons we saw last year, especially in the final 6 or so weeks. Yes, you can say that nobody else was healthy on his team, but there are plenty of players that have opportunities like that in totally empty offenses, and most of them don't do what Amon-Ra St. Brown did. I think he's very good, and I think that he's one of the best upside receivers on the board in round 5. So drafting a lot of them this year.
That would have been my next pick for this team that I have Dalvin Cook, Joe Mixon, Cortland Sutton, and George Kittle. So I've got only one wide receiver. I don't have a quarterback. I'm going to be weak at wide receiver on this team, but I am going to take the other quarterback off the board. I will take not the other quarterback. There's plenty of quarterbacks. I will take the other quarterback in this like stratospheric tier. I will take Mahomes, which means that I drafted all three quarterbacks against of the top quarterbacks against two fantasy pros, which means that I almost certainly lost because that's not, the fantasy pros do not draft quarterbacks early. I understand that. I knew that going in. I even tried to like hold myself back, but I couldn't resist taking these guys on these teams. So I got Mahomes on this squad.
No, I mean, I think 4th and 5th round's fair game for these players. So you're not going to get much pushback from me. I was considering quarterbacks here as well. So I've got a Derrick Henry, Alvin Kamara, Deontay Johnson, Terry McLaurin team. Man, there's a million different ways I could go with this. I could go quarterback. I could get another receiver here for my wide receiver 3. I think I might take Darren Waller, though. I'm going to get the last tight end on the board. He's not a player that I draft a ton of, but I think we are discounting him a little too much. He's still going to get the ball. He's still talented, and he's clearly the end of a tier at tight end. So put Waller on that team. I like this start.
All right. So I am a little bit flummoxed on where to go here. So I started with 2 running backs on this team, DeAndre Swift, Saquon Barkley, and then I went Jerry Jeudy, Keenan Allen. So pretty balanced build. I'm actually going to take another quarterback off the board in Jalen Hurts.
Oh.
So I have Hurts ranked as the 2nd overall quarterback this year. I just talked up AJ Brown. That's a big part of the reason why. I absolutely hate making Josh Allen comparisons to any other quarterback, but it seems like a fairly analogous situation where Stephon Diggs comes to Buffalo. All of a sudden, Josh Allen is a really good passer. I think that is totally in Hurts' range of outcomes this year. He was already a high-end fantasy producer last year, even without getting much done through the air. I think that Hurts is probably my biggest target at quarterback, at least in the early rounds this year.
All right. And so to end, I think this exercise as well, because we're at an hour, but for team 12, I've got Devontae Adams and Mike Williams at wide receiver. I've got the top tight end on the board, Travis Kelce, and I've got Cam Akers as my only running back. So for this team to close it out, I could go with another running back. Again, it's not a terrible situation. You go with the running back. You obviously can go more wide receivers, or you could take a quarterback off the board. There's already been 4 quarterbacks taken. So then you start to do the math, like how many quarterbacks are left. Is there going to be a run? Again, you're at the turn. So like you send them back, what's going to come back to you, and where might you be in that situation? Those are the things you got to start thinking about. Do you kind of take a chance on a guy that you might not love? That's probably what I'm going to have to do here. I think that it's probably going to be Gibson is the smart choice here because he has less competition than he had a few days ago for carries. And I think we're probably beating him up a little bit too much because we had super high expectations on him coming into last year and he did not fill those. But I think that he's got a pretty high carry share that he's going to carry forward in this year. And he's got talent. I mean, so I think we just kind of beat him up as a fantasy community because he didn't meet our expectations, but that's also partly on us. That's our fault for putting high expectations on there. So that's kind of the end of round 5. I think that maybe we go through real quick and maybe just talk about each of our teams or where we're at or what you like or the board overall. And where you would maybe go from there. So I don't know if you wanted to start back with team 1 and then just kind of work your way through, Erik, and we'll just kind of go from there.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was hard to pass on the value of Javonte Williams at the end of the 2nd round. But if I pass on him there, I can start Jonathan Taylor, Deebo Samuel, and Mike Evans, and then maybe pick up one of these running backs in the 4th or 5th round instead of having Deebo, Bateman, and Mooney. I do like the team, but I think maybe I'm better off downgrading Javonte Williams and upgrading one of those wide receivers. So I think that's probably where I would nitpick this team. But I do think Javonte as my RB2 is a bunch of upside. So I'm not real down on it, but that would be my main sticking point with this team 1 build.
Yeah, and I guess looking at team number 2, so I have Christian McCaffrey, AJ Brown, Kyle Pitts, Allen Robinson, Ezekiel Elliott. My real concern here is I really like the first 3 picks, or really the first 4 picks. I think Zeke on the end there is kind of handicapping me. I'm not sure, like, if we were continuing this, what I would be able to see at wide receiver at the end of the 6th round. So only having 2 of them through 5 rounds is a little light for me. So I'd say that would be my nitpick. But again, it's hard not to draft Ezekiel Elliott in round 5.
Sometimes player falls, right? You just don't know what's going to happen in the draft. So my first team, Justin Jefferson, and then I went Nick Chubb, and I feel like I would have gotten Nick Chubb if I just would have sent him back. So this is where you look at the 4 players that were taken before you get to draft again, because those are the guys that you're drafting against. That's how I always see it. And I really wanted to try to come out of that with Kyle Pitts and with either Chubb or Evans or something like that. That's what I was thinking for that team. But I really wanted Pitts. I just thought I could sneak him past because I don't know where these guys are at. I've never drafted against them. And so that's a little bit of my regret there. But I like Chubb as a player. Evans, I really like as a player. And then in the 4th round, I take Herbert. I definitely probably could have got him. And then what I should have done is just taken Mooney first and then taken one of the quarterbacks on the way back. So, live and learn, but this team I think is set up to do okay. It's got 2 running backs and 2 wide receivers, and it's got a cyborg quarterback. I mean, you can fill out this team and it can be competitive.
Yeah. And to be fair, I think I took Mooney like a full round over ADP, so you probably couldn't have seen him going there. So, okay. So my 4th team, I think, is probably my least favorite. Starting out with Cooper Kupp and then Leonard Fournette, Jalen Waddle, James Conner, DK Metcalf. This was the team I kind of caught some of the falling ADP guys. I really don't know what I would have done differently, though, in the 2nd and 3rd round. It's just a weird spot in the draft. And with you all drafting, nobody really fell. I think sometimes I could get T. Higgins there or DJ Moore. So, man, I think I was just kind of caught in between a few different places here. Maybe I just keep letting Conner fall and embrace the 1 RB build. So I don't know. This is not a team I would draft a lot of with Fournette and Conner. But hey, we've seen crazier teams work out. If they stay healthy and DK Metcalf goes off, all of a sudden I've got a strong team here.
Yeah, you've got a pair of hyper fragile running backs there, but sometimes that's the optimal way to draft. So for my next team, I've got Jamar Chase, Mark Andrews, Tyreek Hill, Juju, and Etienne. This might be my favorite of the teams I've drafted. And which is weird because it includes 2 players I'm not getting much in Andrews and Hill, but just the positional advantage this team has at wide receiver and at tight end potentially is huge. And all it takes is Etienne paying off his draft cost. And this team is a juggernaut, really. It would have to fill in the RB2 slot somewhere along the way, but that's not all that hard to do most of the time, especially if you're taking stabs on a lot of running backs late.
Team 6 turned into players that I really like personally, and it's a really even build. Again, this is something that is almost kind of textbook in a lot of ways, I think. So it's Austin Eckler, T. Higgins. So I've got RB1. I've got a wide receiver 1. I do believe T. Higgins is a wide receiver 1. I've got Josh Allen, who can be number 1 overall. Quarterback, I've got David Montgomery, who I think is a rock solid RB2. Good, I think good value there. And then Brandon Ayuk, who I think is a nice gamble as a wide receiver 2, because I think that he could potentially hop into that wide receiver 1 with his talent. So these are players that this is one of those rare times where I think I drafted players that I like, but I think it actually looks like a pretty smart, like balanced build with potential to actually pay off.
Yeah, I like that squad. From the 7th pick, this is probably my favorite team here. I start Stephon Diggs, DJ Moore, Aaron Jones, Chris Godwin, and Breece Hall. In retrospect, if I'd known that Breece Hall was going to be sitting there in the 5th round, I probably could pivot from Aaron Jones to Cortland Sutton and just go full 0 RB build. It's probably the preferable strategy there, but I don't mind, despite most of the other people I'm drafting with not liking Aaron Jones. I think he's a solid pick mid to late 3rd round. So I do like the value there, but with Diggs, DJ Moore, and Chris Godwin, I think I really have 3 receivers that can be wide receiver 1s this year. So I really like this team overall.
Yeah, I think that team is interesting too, because you could just swap where you took Aaron Jones and DJ Moore, and suddenly it's a very common or realistic looking team for ADP.
Yeah.
It looks funny with them switched. Um, so looking at my next team, I started out Najee Harris as my hero running back, and then went CeeDee Lamb, Michael Pittman, Hollywood Brown, and Amon-Ra St. Brown. I actually take back what I said earlier. This is my favorite team that I drafted. The hero RB strategy is personally my favorite. I like getting one running back that has a good shot to finish as the RB1 overall early, and then just hammering all of the value at wide receiver. And even in a draft like this, where we're drafting pretty receiver heavy, I'm really happy with this group. Having Amon-Ra in your flex is an advantage over most other people's flexes, and I've got an advantage at every receiver spot. So I'm loving this team.
Team 9 has Dalvin Cook and Joe Mixon, so probably one of the best running back pairs. I mean, these other guys are going to argue with me in the next two teams, but I think that's a really solid running back tandem. It's got Cortland Sutton as its only wide receiver, so there's a lot of work left to do at the wide receiver position, particularly since the assumption is that this is a PPR league. George Kittle is going to be the tight end, and then Patrick Mahomes is the quarterback. So in terms of how this board fell, and again, part of it was me pushing these players, but value at the end of tiers, right? Getting Mahomes as the third quarterback, half a round after the second quarterback was taken. Kittle, kind of sort of the last of that potentially number one overall tight end breed, unless you're going to say Waller will be. So it's more like super old school where you draft two running backs at the beginning. How do you follow that up? Most people probably take more wide receivers, but I like taking the potential number one overall player at those other positions.
Yeah, it's funny how this range of the draft sets up for two running backs here too. So 10th pick, I start Derrick Henry, Alvin Kamara, Deontay Johnson, Terry McLaurin, and Darren Waller. I do like this team. I'm not drafting a ton of Henry or Kamara, but there's a huge amount of upside there. And I'm coming back in the 6th round with a pick here pretty quick. And there are actually some receivers I still like as my wide receiver 3 to fill that out. So, I mean, I've got options like DeAndre Hopkins, Devontae Smith. There's some interesting names. So I still think I can fill out my wide receiver 3 relatively well. I'll be drafting a lot of them over the next few rounds, and they probably will run out for me a little bit, but a lot of upside on this team. This would be a team I would probably wait as long as I could on quarterback, since I took Darren Waller really early. So maybe I'm looking at a Justin Fields late or something like that with this team. So I think it would work out well. As long as these wide receivers don't dry up over the next 3 rounds.
Yeah, so similar thoughts on my last team. I have DeAndre Swift, Saquon Barkley, and then Jerry Jeudy, Keenan Allen, Jalen Hurts. So anytime that I'm drafting a running back early, you have to view it as a possible landmine. The injury rates, the bust rates are just so much higher with running backs early on than they are with receivers. So this really qualifies as a hyper fragile build. And even in my receiver room with Jerry Jeudy and Keenan Allen, there's a lot of fragility there too. Jeudy could simply be like a decent player that is not going to take the next step with Russell Wilson. Keenan Allen could be on the downswing of his career. So this team could potentially get very, very rough very quickly. The next pick would have to be a wide receiver. I would probably pick Elijah Moore. So just to try to shore up at least a target floor in my receiver room.
And then the last team, Devontae Adams and Kelce in the first 2 rounds. It's kind of interesting to look at the board, and you could have gone that traditional 2 running back route here as well. Felt like I was already going to do that with Team 9. So, went a different direction. You've got a guy that potentially could be the number 1 wide receiver in that new offense. You've got a guy that almost certainly has a really good chance of being the number 1 overall tight end. And then after that, I almost feel like I probably should have leaned into grabbing 2 wide receivers in the next pick. Maybe leave Cam Akers alone, take Mike Williams, and then maybe take a guy like Terry McLaurin, and then just have like really great pass catchers and lean into that a little bit more. Did not do that, and took Cam Akers and Mike Williams instead to kind of balance it out a little bit. And then Gibson there in the 5th round. And then after that, again, I I mean, I don't know what I would have done. I probably would have tried to take another wide receiver. I just didn't. No one was jumping out at me that said like you got to take him here. So I think overall, being in the middle of the draft and this particular draft seemed like it kind of peaked out for a lot of us. Like that's where we, that 6 through 8 range really seemed to be a lot of our favorites for this particular draft. Every draft's a little different. If we would have etch a sketch this out and start over again, things would different change. People would have made different decisions, then all of a sudden we would have been doing different things. But I think you can learn a lot about, your own strategy. You can learn a lot about, if I take this player, what does that mean? A little bit further down the line, where are these runs at? That's the kind of stuff that the draft prep I think is always pretty interesting in. I think you can draft well from any position. It's just a matter of understanding maybe what you're trying to go for, when you're trying to go for the ceiling players, and when you're trying to just build a basic floor, build positional value. So really interesting stuff. I like drafting against you guys because you guys obviously know what you're doing. That's all I have. What do you guys got going on at the site? What do where can they find you on the Twitter machine? All that kind of good stuff.
So I mean, I'm at Erik Smith QBL. The site's at the QB list. It's a weird time of the year. It feels like we've done everything at this point. Like we've done all of our draft prep. It's all out there. We got a ton of good podcasts, the QB List Fantasy Football Podcast. I got to start prepping for my home league. That's my biggest draft of the year. So that's where my mind's starting to go. I don't know about you, Ryan.
Yeah, no, personally, my home league became a dynasty league a couple years ago, so I don't get to participate in the excitement of the home league anymore, which is kind of disappointing for me, honestly. Maybe we need to start up another one. But yeah, you can find me at QBL Ryan. All my work is on QB List on the website. I recently wrote a really big article about how to find juggernaut running backs early in your draft. The running backs with the highest ceilings that are going to win you your league. So check that out.
We plugged Ryan's paper on the paper, not,
Ryan's you can call article. It that, yeah.
I mean, it was long, right? We plugged that on the running back episode. There are Erik and I did an episode for each position group that's out there if you want to get into specifics. This was just kind of putting it all together, kind of showing how this would work out. And even though quarterbacks might be S tier, that's not the same thing as a running back S tier, right? Like, so just kind of trying to compare and contrast where those guys go. Otherwise, like, I think for those of you that are novices, haven't done a lot of drafting, my best advice to you is have a little fun with it. Like, maybe take players that you like. Don't get too caught up. Definitely don't take players you don't like just because they're next on the sheet. So that's a way to like not enjoy fantasy. You don't want to be sitting there on a Sunday night cheering for Aaron Rodgers to do well when you're a Bears fan. Like, just don't do it. Just don't do it. Just don't draft him. So, have a little fun with it. If you're more advanced, definitely be reading the QB List stuff. You should be reading it if you're a beginner too, but if you're advanced and you really want to dig in, these guys got the best stuff on the internet. And the other thing about them I'll say is these guys are accessible. You want to chat at them on Twitter, they will respond to you. You're not going to get that from Field Yates. You're not going to get that from some of these bigger guys because they've got 2 million followers, right? These guys are really into this stuff. They really enjoy it and they like the conversation. So follow them on Twitter, read their work. It's all really good stuff. And I really appreciate the time that both of you have given, and especially Erik, to go through this entire series with me. I really appreciate it.
Oh yeah, it's been a blast. So thanks for having me. We're on Reddit. We're in Our Fantasy Football. We're on Twitter. We're everywhere. So just come talk some football with us. That's all we do around the clock.
Awesome, guys. All right, thanks. Until next time, guys. We'll be back soon with more Bears stuff. And then next week I'm going to do a gambling show. So your preseason bets, we're going to get some of that going. So